Good afternoon. My name is Robin Scott, the Episcopal nominee from North Alabama. My wife, Lou Ann, is with me here today, and we're grateful. We were asked to talk about two accomplishments in ministry, and the first thing I want to say about that is ministry is never about one person. Never about one person. But I want to share with you two stories that I was proud to be part of. The first one came in 1990 when I was assigned to a church northeast of Birmingham, Alabama, a church that had averaged about 120 in average attendance for 75 years. And while I was at that church, the attendance increased to over 400. And while we were there, people came to the realization that every member was a minister, that every layperson is called. Over and over, we shared from the pulpit and talked in Bible studies, and the culture of the church became, we all have a call upon our lives. Your call, as in me, was to pastor a church, but your call may be to be a coach at a high school, or a Sunday school teacher, a nurse, or a plumber, a politician, a city councilman. The calls are many. It became such a part of the church that even the little kids would walk down the hall and the 5-year-old would say, "Hey, preacher, every member's a minister," and give me a high five. I like those because they were the few people in the church that I didn't have to reach up to get a high five for. That church grew expeditiously. And then the second one I want to share with you is 12 years later. I stayed at that church 12 years, and I was moved to Lake Guntersville. And there at that church, we grew from 450 to quickly to over 650, and we had to do something. Our worship spaces were small, and so we started a satellite ministry. And everybody we talked to said started in the most affluent neighborhood that there is in the area. But we started it in the poorest neighborhood that there was in the area, because we realized that there was a group of people that we were not reaching. And not only we were not reaching them, no one in the community was reaching them. So we purposely planted a congregation in the poorest neighborhood there in Marshall County, and we saw people come to Christ and people come to the Lord that we had never seen come to the Lord in our midst. But the thing that impressed me the most about all of that was what happened there, of course, but what it did to us and how it affected us. We changed because we planted that neighborhood church. The church is right downtown, and I would often walk to lunch, and one day I walked to lunch and I'm walking back and a lady is approaching me and she says, "Hey, are you the Methodist preacher?" And I could just tell by the way she said it that I wanted to say, "No, he's a real tall guy with hair," you know. But I said, "Yeah, I'm him." And she said, "Y'all started that Genesis thing, didn't you?" And I said, "Yes, we did." She said, "You just take anybody." And because I'm not fully sanctified yet, I said to her, "And yes, we'll take you, 10:30 Sunday morning." My Baptist sister didn't appreciate my humor. My passion. Let me tell you a story. This is going to take a little bit of imagination. It's 1976. It's October the 10th. I'm preaching my second sermon ever. I have a powder blue leisure suit on. Anybody remember those? And my John Travolta slicky shirt, you know. And I have hair like Shaggy on Scooby-Doo, you know. Just the earlobe showing because my dad would throw me out of the house if the ears got covered. And so I preached my sermon. I still remember what I preached. I preached on the fire falling out of 1 Kings. And after the sermon was over, the pastor asked the congregation to commit spiritual fraud and come up and tell me what a good job I did. And so I'm standing there, and most of the people in line are grandmother types, and they're pinching my cheeks. I'm 18 years old, telling me, lying, telling me I did a good job, and so on and so forth. But 6 people deep in that line was this girl in this orange dress. And so I'll be honest with you, I'm just trying to get the little ladies out of the way, you know, so I can get to the girl in the orange dress. She finally gets up to me, and she says, "You preached a really good sermon." I said, "Thank you." She said, "You want to come home and eat chili with me and my grandmother?" And I'm thinking, this preaching thing has benefits that I knew not of. I said, "Yes, I do." 22 months later, we got married. We were 20 and 17. Someone said, "Weren't you afraid?" I said, "No, we didn't have sense enough to be afraid." I take my vows seriously. I didn't know exactly what it meant when I said to her, sickness, health, rich or poor, but I knew I wanted to do it till the day I died. I didn't know exactly what it meant at 11 years old when I said I'd support the church with my prayers, my presence, my gifts, and my service. But I knew I wanted to follow Jesus with everything that I had. I really didn't know what it meant exactly at ordination when I said I will be itinerant. I'll go anywhere you send me. Thou preach house to house. But I knew I meant it. And I mean this. If you decide in your wisdom to elect me as bishop, when I take those consecration vows, I'll mean them. Thank you.